The UMass Lowell Hockey Riverhawks with a busy weekend ahead. A couple of games on the road. Friday night at Merrimack, and then on Sunday afternoon, Super Bowl Sunday, the Riverhawks up in Orono, Maine to take on the Black Bears of the University of Maine. Joining us right now, the head coach of the Riverhawks, Norm Bazin. Norm, welcome.
I'm pleased to be with you, Bob.
3 out of 4 points last week, and in both games, this team trailed by significant margins in the third period. I'm sure you're not necessarily happy with the way the games, the way the team performed throughout the 60 minutes each, or 65 minutes in each occasion, but I think you're probably pleased with what you saw at the end.
Yeah, we'll take the results. However, we have to learn something from both games and start off stronger this weekend.
What's the message that you really want them to embrace from last weekend?
Well, you have to play 65 minutes in order to play your game effectively. And we chose to play parts of those games, and we were very fortunate to come out with 3 or 4 points.
What did we learn about this team? And I think of things such as resilience and character. What did we learn from those 2 third-period comebacks?
Well, you have to be impressed with their no-quit attitude. I think resilience is a good word for it. I think we were faced with adversity, and fortunately for us, we're able to overcome it, especially on Saturday.
On Saturday, the game finished with Christian Folan, I guess, scoring his first goal ever in overtime, according to what he tells me. But the thing that jumped out at me, and has jumped out about him at other times watching him in practice, this young man can shoot the puck.
Yeah, he's got a heavy shot. We've got several defensemen now with heavy shots, and a couple of them you haven't seen yet. So it bodes well for him, his offensive output, but more importantly, we're getting good contributions from the back end, which is encouraging.
I want to, for a moment, kind of go off on a little bit of a tangent here. Let's define a heavy shot, because I've seen shots that may have the same velocity, same speed on the radar gun, but one shot may be described as a heavy shot and the other simply as a shot. What's a heavy shot?
Well, yeah, it's a good question for the goaltenders, the ones that hurt when they hit you. You know what? It's some guys pack a little bit more punch in their shot. I mean, Christian is probably 215. Joe Houck's at 225. Dima's probably a good 215 pounds at least. So those guys, when they get behind a shot and they put their weight into it, can pack a pretty heavy shot.
The last 10 goals this team has scored by 9 different players. Now, I'm not all caught up in stats here, but what it does point out is the depth that we have had on this hockey club throughout the season, and depth in contributions at key times.
No question. I think you bring up an excellent point. Depth is very good, and I think in the playoffs you're going to need every bit of it. And when opposition can't really pinpoint 1 or 2 scores on the other team, they have to account for all 4 lines. That's when you really start to become a team that can threaten on any given shift, and I hope we can continue that trend.
I mean, I do get the feeling you say all 4 lines, that all 4 lines can come up with goals, and the defense can come up with goals. I mean, it really is as deep a team as I've seen in a while, and I realize last year's team had a terrific season. This year's team seems deeper.
Yeah, we feel so. We feel like we can have contributions from even a couple of guys that weren't in the lineup that can come in at any time. And you've seen a number of different lineups throughout the streak, and they've all contributed in different ways. So, we feel we can be pretty deep right into the stretch, and that's what we're going to need all the way along, especially in the playoffs.
You make a very good point. The lineup changes almost from night to night. Who's got a sweater on and who doesn't, which speaks well for the depth. I'm just curious your thought process. Does it depend on the style that an opponent plays? Does it depend upon a building? Is it who's hot? How do you make those decisions from night to night?
Well, it's all those factors. It's who's had a good week of practice, who we're playing, how physical a game it's going to be, who's been very strong in the face-off circle, a number of different factors. But it comes down to competition. If you create that competition in practice, we feel it's going to appear in games. And when you feel the competitive lineup, they scratch and claw for every single point. And that's what we've been doing here over the stretch.
Before we get into looking at the teams we play this weekend individually, I want to first note a similarity. They both play in buildings, and I'm sure they're the NHL size rinker they'll claim to be, but both buildings feel small. Does one prepare this week for a different type of building than we typically go into?
Well, I think you have to account for the different diameters of the buildings. They're both very unique in college because one has egg-shaped corners up in Maine, and Merrimack is one of the smaller rinks in the country. However, you can't start to make it a big issue. There's still two nets, and the distance between the dots and the net is the same distance anywhere. It's just the rest of the rink that plays differently. So the great area is the same size in both rinks as it is in the Songus, and that's what we're most concerned about for the weekend.
Friday night, Merrimack College. Doesn't matter what Merrimack's doing. They're always tough. It always seems as though it's a ferocious hockey game. Doesn't matter where. They're a tough opponent.
No question. I think I equate this rivalry to the Denver CC. No matter how down or how up a team is, they're great games. They're great games. It's a Montreal-Quebec series or Montreal-Boston, even better. They're always good games. So you're going to encounter physical play. You're going to encounter net front stick battles. You're going to have a lot of emotion all throughout the game. So you got to prepare for that and be ready for a great challenge.
Is this team emotionally where you want it to be?
Well, I think you always want to age the guys by 2 or 3 years, but it just doesn't happen. If you've got 9 freshmen, you've got 9 freshmen, and you deal with it. And it's more inexperience than youth. And I'm sure they've got some of the same gripes. They'd like to be 2 or 3 years older. However, in college, the guys need experience in games to get better, and that's what we're getting during the stretch.
I feel as though this team, and we talked about this, I think, at mid-season, whether this team's personality, its identity had developed. Do we feel it has now?
Oh, there's no doubt. After every game, and more importantly, every stretch of 5 games, we notice that we've added something to our identity, and it's a work in progress, and it's still going to progress right up until playoffs. But I like the way we respond. I like our tempo. I certainly like our pushback. So those are all great attributes, great characteristics.
And then on Sunday, the University of Maine, they may be playing their best hockey of the year at the moment. Come off a sweep against number 1 in the nation, or number 1 in Hockey East, I should say, Boston College, and at BC.
Well, we've noticed that. I think everybody in college hockey has noticed that. When you go into the Conte Forum and you take both games, that says a lot about your team. And we're going to have our hands full on Sunday. But first, we're concentrating on Friday alone. And Merrimack's been hot in the stretch.
And I guess it would not be fair to end this without noting 17,000 in the building last Saturday night. I know talking to players, they heard them, they were aware of the crowd, and I'm sure as a coach you were as well.
Well, 7,000 fans is absolutely great. It was an unbelievable atmosphere. It was a big point in the game where you heard the student section specifically cheer the guys on, and it really gave them the edge. And it was a tipping point in the comeback. There's no question. We hope to see that again.
We look forward to it. Norm, have a terrific weekend. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Bob.
And the Riverhawks at Merrimack Friday night, at the University of Maine Sunday afternoon.